Hey guys, so for today's exam, we're asking you to take your selfie, bring it into Photopea, and turn half of it into a monster. We're going to utilize a lot of the techniques we've used in Photopea many times over for this summative. You do have a little bit of flexibility with how creative you can get with this. There are some parameters you must follow, but the rest is really on you. Let's start off with the basics. First things first, you're going to open up this file. You're going to see that there's nothing in it except for a folder that I have some hidden elements for. What we want to do first is bring in our photograph. So you're going to go up to File, Open in Place, and find your photo on your computer. I have two examples I've brought in here. Obviously, you will have your own selfie. I brought an example of a girl and a guy. You want your selfie to be fairly close because our focus is on your face. So you might need to resize it. Once you have your image ready, you want to select out your selfie so that it's only the selfie and no background. So that's what I'm going to do for these two images now. Use whatever selection tool you like. If your background is very similar in color to what you're wearing, you might have a little bit of trouble, so you have to be really precise with this. Once you have your selection, you do want to add a mask so that your portrait is the only thing you see, so you shouldn't see any background. We're going to need this because we want to have our own background in the end. If you have long hair or strands of hair that might be standing out, selections can be a little difficult. Just try your best to get as much of your hair as you can before you add a mask. See here, she has these little strands that are kind of out of the way. We can go back and clean that up with the mask, but we just want an overall selection of your person. When you're done with your selection, take a screenshot. That's your first check-in for the day. Now comes the fun part, which is where you really plan what kind of monster you want your half face to be. Depending on the monster you choose, will depend on the elements you need. For example, if you choose something that's a little more demonish, you would get horns. Maybe you think about changing the eye color. If you're doing more like a vampire, you would need the fangs, things of that nature. So planning is really going to save you time on this. I'm going to hide my portrait real quick and show you some elements we provided. You do not have to use the elements we gave you if you have your own vision, but if you need them, they're there. If you show this group, you'll see we gave you a few things like a skull if you wanted to make your face half a skull, some creepy eyes, some elf ears, fangs, and horns and scales. Again, these are not necessary for you, but you can utilize them. For the test, we're asking you to utilize or include 3 elements added to your monster side or 3 edits made to your monster side. And what I mean by that is adding something means like adding fangs, adding a horn, adding scales. Edits means maybe you take the liquefy tool and you make your face a different proportion. Maybe you select your eyes and you make your eyes a different color. That's an edit. You have to do at least 3 of them to your image. You also have to change the skin color on half your image as well, which I'll show you how to do in a moment. And you have to have 2 different backgrounds, one on your monster side and one on your human side. Okay, so let's start off with this guy. I'm going to hide the monster element. Actually, I'm going to steal some scales because I want to use a scale on him. So I'm going to make a copy of it in case I need it later and just drag it up on top and then hide everything so it's out of the way. So I have this guy here and I wanted to show you 2 methods of including something into your photograph. One of them is pretty quick. A lot of the things I gave you have white outlines on the bottom. So if I tried to select this, this would be kind of difficult because the scale is like half opaque. It doesn't just blend to nothing. So I can take my magic wand tool and try that, but it would be a lot of work. It might not look so great. I can do something even faster, and I can use my layer blend modes. Where it says normal up here, if I try like multiply, see how the white has kind of disappeared, but I'm left with that nice cool scale because it gets rid of the white, but it gives this really cool like darkening effect. And then I can take a mask and add a mask and kind of clean up the edges to make sure it looks a little bit more appropriate for my face. So I've used a layer blend mode and a layer mask, and that's one way you can bring elements into your photograph. At the end of the day, we just want this to look as seamless as possible. So it really shouldn't look like it's slapped on top of your face as much as it's ingrained into your face. That's one method. Let's talk about another one. Let's take the girl and let's say I wanted to use horns. So I'll take this set of horns back here. I'm gonna make a copy. Drag it all the way on top again. Just hide everything else so it's out of the way. So if I want one of these horns, I can make a selection. I'm actually going to select the background, select inverse, and I want the left horn, so I'm going to just focus on that. I'm going to add a mask, right? I don't want the right horn, so I'm just going to paint away the right horn with black. It'll just hide it for me because it's a mask. That's why we love using masks. And now I have this horn and I can really like finagle this on her face. I can shrink it down, okay? And that's another way of including an element into your image, but it doesn't look really good, right? Well, there's little tricks you can do to make this look better. One of them is kind of make like a fake shadow. To do that, I'm just gonna make a new layer, paint with black and make my brush super, super tiny. Just give a little shadow on her skin. I'm actually gonna make my opacity lower so it's not super intense. It gives an illusion that some light is hitting her skin. I'm just gonna drag it underneath. Right? That's one way to make it look a little bit more like it's on her face. That's another way of adding an element. Now let's talk about changing the skin color, because that's something you must do. You have to change the skin color, and by doing that, you're just gonna select the face that's the monster side. You can use whatever selection tool you want. Now what I'd like to do is make an edit on just this half. Since I have my selection, I can add a hue and saturation adjustment layer down here, hit hue and saturation. Now I can tinker around with this part of her skin and really make her look monstrous. Now another thing we've given you as an option is to use Liquify to edit the face, and that counts as an edit. So I'm gonna select her, and we've used Liquify before when we did that Salvador Dali inspired layout. We're gonna go up to filter and Liquify. If I want her proportions to look more monstrous, I can kind of zoom in, and maybe I wanna pull out some of her cheek to make it wider. Maybe I want her lips to curl upward in an evil sneer. I basically have a lot of options here. So now I have an element added, I have Liquify that altered the side of her face, and I've changed her skin color. I'm missing one more edit, so I think I'm going to change her eye color. To do that, it's really simple. I can make a selection of her eye with whatever selection tool I like, and I can add a different type of adjustment. So I want to add a hue and saturation, but I want this hue and saturation to be over the other one, so this one comes in strong as a different color. Right, and the same thing, it comes with the mask, so it's super easy for me to take my brush, clean up those edges so the line doesn't look so sharp. Right, and what I have here is an example of something that would be qualified for this test. It has an element added, which is a fang, eye change, and skin color change, as well as her face change. So now what I have here is something that would qualify for this test. The only thing that's missing now is choosing the backgrounds I'd like to be on her monster side versus her normal side. So I've already downloaded a background for the monster side. I did a graveyard. You can download whatever you like that makes sense. Drag it underneath all your work. So that's her half. Now we want to bring in the normal half of her. I already researched a photo for that as well. I'm going to drag it in. Now the thing is, I have to kind of hide half of that background. That way I can see the graveyard. So I'm just going to resize this a bit. Okay, and then I'm just going to take like a rectangular marquee or something that's going to let me choose half. Now I'll add a mask. That way half of my city, normal side, right? Other half, creepy cemetery side. When you go to submit this today, you are going to submit your original selfie without any edits, as well as your final work. And lastly, you're going to take a screenshot of your layers panel. That's really going to show us the technique and tricks you use to make your monster half. All right, your must-haves. You have to have a portrait of yourself, inclusion of 3 elements or 3 edits. You have to change your skin tone in your monster half. Your elements should only apply to one half of the face. One half should remain normal. A background should be behind your monster side and a background should be behind your normal side. And lastly, you should submit a photograph of your original selfie so we know what it looked like in the beginning. Some amazings are use layer blend modes, use adjustment layers, add more elements than we asked you for, edit the background for your monster side, or create a document showing us all the elements you use laid out right next to each other so we can kind of see what your vision was. Good luck. Can't wait to see what you come up with.